Bradley and she rushed into each other passionately. No reason could stop them anymore. Both of them became one, giving each other the sweetest and most sublime emotions of the fairyland. 2 hours was the time they lived their lives, for the joy that would open new pages for both of their lives. Hello everyone, welcome to our channel, where we will bring you the most interesting and dramatic stories in life. It will take the audience from one surprise to another. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. In today's video, we will bring you the story of Emma. Please follow along. Bradley put out his cigarette and picked up the phone, dialing the number advertised on Facebook for a room to rent. Hello, who is calling? The man on the other end picked up the phone. Hello, I read your ad online and saw that you have a spare room for rent, is that right? Yes, that's right, but not until next month. Next month? I need it right away because my younger brother is staying there and he's moving next month, so the room is vacant. Don't you have somewhere to stay for about 2 weeks? I don't have one. I'm staying at my aunt's house in another city. I just found a job in the city where you live, and it's very close to where you work. I don't know anyone here, so I don't have anyone to stay with. Oh, that's difficult. Let me go back later and ask my brother if he'll let you stay. Then we'll negotiate the money. You just give him some money, and it's okay. That would be great. Please ask for me and answer me right away so I can pack my things up there. Okay, I'll call you right away. The next day, Bradley said goodbye to his aunt and picked up his suitcase of clothes and his laptop bag and headed to the city where he would be working. He loved to cook and had asked Ezra for a job he liked, which was to help cook and sometimes serve food when there were a lot of customers. Bradley's intention was to initially work as an apprentice, as a kitchen assistant, and then open his own restaurant after a year or two. When Bradley rang the bell of the house he would be staying at, a woman in her 30s opened the door for him. Bradley's first impression of the landlady was a smile that he would probably never forget. Her teeth were a little buck-toothed. She smiled at him and asked if she was the person who called to rent the house yesterday. Bradley was so engrossed in thinking about her teeth that he didn't notice her question. He just mumbled and felt a little embarrassed about his impolite behaviour. When she went first and he went after her to go upstairs, Bradley also saw that the landlady's body was quite similar to his mother's. The only difference was that his mother was much prettier, and his mother was taller than her. She was probably about 1'55", but also had a bit of fat. If there was any resemblance, it was only the big breasts and 2 relatively large grapefruits. When he entered the house, Bradley tried to push that thought out of his mind and focused on talking to the landlady. According to her, her name was Emma, and her husband's name was Connor. Connor came home from work at noon, and his brother wasn't home, so the 2 sisters sat down and talked. Emma was quite happy to talk to Bradley. She said that she worked as a hired hand, selling fabric for a Vietnamese store, and she only worked 8 hours from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. Connor worked as an Ezra in a German factory, and he tried to make money, so he worked 12 hours a day from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. They had 2 children, and they were currently sending them to their grandparents in Vietnam to focus on earning money. In a few years, when their children were older and going to school, they would bring them over and also find their own store to work for. Bradley thought that they were renting out a private room, but that wasn't the case. Bradley muttered to himself, "Advertisement is still advertising." The room they were renting out was actually a large living room, just like the house Bradley and his mother stayed in last time, which had a bedroom and a living room. But this house was different, in that their bedroom was not attached to the living room. It was next to it and had a proper door. The kitchen was also quite large and had enough tables and chairs for everyone to eat in the kitchen. Bradley saw a mattress on the floor in the living room, and Emma said it was his younger brother's. He was still sleeping there, so Bradley would have to sleep on the sofa. Bradley didn't care much about accommodation, so he agreed with his mother and father to stay here. For Bradley at that time, just having a place to sleep after work was good enough. Bradley didn't have to go to work for the first 2 days. Bradley went to the bar where he would work, and the owner was quite friendly and understanding. He told him to rest for 2 or 3 days, and then go visit the city before going to work. Bradley was home all day alone, so he didn't know what to do and had no one to talk to. Bradley went out and wandered around to get to know the city. He walked alone and had only cigarettes as company. He felt that loneliness was always clinging to him. He had been through a failed marriage before, and he had forgotten that marriage. The only sadness was that he would never be able to be a father. The first 2 nights, because it was a new place, Bradley kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The whole family had gone to bed and turned off all the lights. Bradley lay there staring at the darkness in the room. He missed his mother and his sister, the girl he had fallen in love with when he had just returned to Vietnam 6 months ago. Her image appeared again, making him nostalgic, making him remember the moments when he was with her. The girl he loved was a hair washer, only 19 years old. She was pretty and worked in a hair washing and massage parlour. He was impressed and had feelings for her because all the girls there did everything, from washing hair to massaging, even taking customers to motels, except for her. She was the prettiest and youngest there, so every customer wanted her to massage their back. I always refused, sometimes gently, sometimes angrily. I am from Haiphong, so I have a somewhat fierce personality. Although I am the youngest, everyone is afraid of me because I have a very big Bradley. Because I came back to Vietnam to visit, Bradley had nothing to do, so every day Bradley came to my shop to wash his hair and drink beer. Gradually I also liked Bradley because I saw that Bradley came here only to have me wash his hair. I never saw Bradley go upstairs to massage his back like other customers. Gradually, both of them fell in love. Bradley remembered the memories of taking me out, or the 2 of us going up to Kenora Duong Bridge to watch the river and talk. When I fell in love with Bradley, I realised that I was a very different person. I also had feelings, I was also introverted, I also had sadness, joy and jealousy, like any normal girl. I brought him to my hometown to visit several times, and Bradley remembered the warm atmosphere of a farmer's family. My whole family, from my parents to my siblings, loves him. They always remind me to bring him home to drink with my dad and brother. After several months of dating, the 2 of them only stopped at kissing. Whenever her desire was high, she would only let him kiss her big white breasts. And Bradley could not imagine how a 19-year-old girl could have such big breasts. Several times Bradley wanted to go further because he knew he loved her, but in his mind, Bradley still thought that a girl who worked as a hair washer would do such a thing. So Bradley put his hand down to caress her several times, and each time I used my hand to stop him from going beyond the limit. When the love was deep, Bradley wanted me to be his own. He didn't want me to do this scandalous job anymore. I also knew that Bradley didn't like me talking to customers, so because I loved Bradley, I agreed to quit my job. In the following months, Bradley took me to find a job but couldn't find any for me, simply because I had no money, no connections, and I only finished 9th grade and dropped out of school, so no one would hire me. When I loved Bradley too much and could only rely on him for everything in this crowded city, Bradley told me the truth that he had to go far away in a week. He had to go to Germany to continue working. Bradley knew he was not good. Thinking of this, tears welled up in his eyes because of Nora. I was angry with him and very sad when I heard Bradley say that. I went back to my hometown with a text message that he read and felt a pain in his heart. I know you still only see me as a hair-washing girl. I don't blame you. I only blame myself for trusting and loving you too much. I wish you happiness and find a girl more innocent than me. Bradley didn't want to explain, didn't want to tell me that I would be miserable for the rest of my life. if I lived with him for the rest of my life. The lesson of marriage with Mai had already hurt him so much, he didn't want to be hurt again. At first, he just wanted to play around. He didn't think he would love me this much. Bradley touched his shoulder, erasing the scars that I had marked on it. He thought back to the last few nights when he came here, thinking that he would never see me again. Then I appeared before him. I hugged him and cried for a long time, saying, "I miss you." It was when he hugged me and let me cry that he realized that I truly loved him. This feeling wasn't fake, he thought. For 4 consecutive days, Bradley and he travelled all over Hanoi to try to live together in the last days before having to leave each other. During the day, I tried to laugh and talk to make him happy, but every night in the motel room, I cried. It seemed like I cried all night. Every night my pillow was soaked. There were days when I cried and bit his shoulder very painfully, as if to vent all my anger on it, because he left me. During the last nights together, I let Bradley go a little further. Bradley remembered the beautiful girl, with the smooth red grass underneath, looking extremely attractive to him. I didn't object when Bradley used his hand to explore her. He was even more greedy when he put his face in there and swept away the cobwebs. I thought I had agreed, but when Bradley was about to do it, I opened my eyes and closed my legs tightly, not letting Bradley do it. For 3 consecutive nights, it was always like that. Every time Bradley wanted to really do it, I refused, determined not to let him go beyond the limit. By the 4th night, the last night we could be together, Bradley thought it was impossible, so he stopped asking for anything. He just wanted to lie down and hug and kiss him. Then I whispered in his ear, "Put it in me," making his eyes widen in surprise. Bradley sighed as he thought about it. He thought I was in pain because my dick was big. But when he finished, he saw a few red marks on the bedsheet and realized I was still a virgin. Bradley turned on his phone to read the text message he received while at the airport. I went back to my hometown the next morning and texted Bradley one last time. "Last night, I decided to give it to you, the person who has taught me what love is. I never blame you for anything, just don't forget me. A girl who works as a hair washer but loves you very much. I hope you are happy in Penora." Bradley's tears flowed again in the night as he read and reread that message. He missed me and felt guilty towards me. Bradley folded the phone and tried to close his eyes to start a new life tomorrow. Bradley's first days at work were quite difficult because he was not used to the job, and the people working there were not very friendly. There were many days when there were many customers and a lot of work, but because he was a newbie, there were some things that Bradley had to ask how to do, from the head chef to the lowly employees. They all got angry with Bradley, making him feel hurt and just wanted to go home. But he thought that the important thing was Ezra's work. The important thing was getting paid at the end of the month, so he tried to be patient and wait until the end of the day to go home. The owner and his wife have quite a big age gap. The owner is over 40, but the wife is quite young, about 2 to 5 years younger than Bradley. The owner's family has 2 shops, so they take turns running back and forth to manage them. Bradley sees that the owner usually comes out late around 11-12 o'clock, but is rarely there because he is like a runner. No one knows where he goes. Every 5 or 6 o'clock, the owner comes home first to take care of the children, even though there is a maid to help. One shop closes at 8 o'clock, the other closes at 10 o'clock, so the owner is usually the last one to come home because he has to take the money and check the books. The owner's name is Ezra Nora, and they have a daughter who is about 5 years old. So Ezra got married when she was only 19 years old at most. Bradley liked Ezra but didn't like his little owner very much, because Nora was quiet, taciturn, and always had her phone in her hand, so Bradley rarely had a chance to talk to her. Even though he didn't like Nora, Bradley had to admit that Nora was quite pretty. Nora had fair skin, a string-like body, a slim waist, and breasts that were neither small nor large, just average. If Bradley were to ask what he liked most about his owner, it would probably be her eyes. Bradley thought Nora had dark eyes with a hint of sadness, and her slightly thick eyebrows could also mean she was flirtatious or something. As a support worker, Bradley only worked from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. His salary included 3 meals, but Bradley did not eat dinner at the restaurant like everyone else there. As soon as the hour was up, Bradley would go home to have dinner with Connor and Emma. Bradley would rather pay Emma a little more for dinner to enjoy the comfortable and happy atmosphere with everyone after a tiring day of work than stay and eat with those arrogant men who like to bully new employees. The first few days after moving in, everyone seemed shy and uncomfortable because they didn't know each other, but after a few days, every night they had dinner. Everyone was happy like Tet. My brother thought they would move out after the end of the month, but he moved out after a week because Ezra's job forced him to move out right away. After living with Connor and Emma, Bradley found that Connor seemed a bit crazy. He often talked nonsense, and Bradley didn't understand who he was talking about. Emma knew Bradley was wondering about that, so she told Connor not to mind because he often talked nonsense. Both of them were from the Midwest, so in the beginning, Bradley didn't understand many of the words they said, but Bradley had to ask them what they meant. Connor had a habit of not eating without a bottle of wine. Every night he had to have a bottle next to him before he could sit down. Bradley also liked to drink, so since Bradley moved in, Connor had a drinking buddy, so he was quite happy and liked Bradley. Because he had to wake up at 6 o'clock to go to work early, Connor planned to go to his room to watch a movie after drinking. Usually the movie was still on, but he had already fallen asleep without realizing it. Emma was the first one to come home out of the 3, so she was in charge of shopping and cooking. At first, Bradley's eating habits didn't seem to match the Midwest way of cooking, but after a month, he got used to it, and gradually, eating wasn't much of a problem for Bradley. Living together in the same house and seeing each other every day, Bradley gradually developed feelings for Emma and found her to be funny. And Bradley often helps her cook and wash dishes because Bradley also likes to cook. Sometimes Bradley shows off the special dishes he learned at the restaurant. He also teaches Emma how to make them, and Emma also likes them very much. As time goes by, the feelings between Bradley and Emma also grow. Connor works from morning to night, eats rice, drinks half a bottle of wine, and then goes to sleep, so Emma can only talk to Bradley to relieve her boredom. Bradley's gentle and honest personality also wins the affection of a woman with 2 children, who has only known how to earn money for a long time and has never paid attention to men and women. Bradley also gradually likes Emma, looking at her for so long that her slightly buck-toothed smile becomes a charm to him. Emma is a country girl, so she is almost not interested in modern entertainment. To be exact, she knows nothing. Whenever she finishes cleaning, Bradley helps her learn about Facebook or news sites and online movie channels. Because she doesn't have a computer, she often uses Bradley's laptop. Every time he sits next to her to guide her, her pajamas can't cover her very large breasts. Bradley's eyes only dare to glance at her at first, but then they are glued to her as if hypnotized. Bradley hasn't had a woman for months, and every night he has to cut half a bottle of vodka with Connor, so his desire is increasing. Every time he sits next to Emma, sees her breasts or sees her hips swaying as she walks, his instincts rise strongly. Every time Emma goes to her room to go to sleep, Bradley runs straight to the toilet to jerk off while thinking about Emma. There are days when he has just come out but can't sleep. Thinking about her, he gets up and goes to the toilet to jerk off again. Because he was at the most vigorous age of his life, Bradley felt that his needs were too high. He also did not understand why his needs were so high. Every night he jerked off once or twice, but in the morning he had to do it again to feel comfortable. All of Bradley's actions did not escape Emma's eyes, from looking at her chest to the way he cared. Although she was a country girl from a poor Midwest countryside, she was in her 30s, so Bradley's actions did not escape her eyes. Normally, if a man saw him peeping at her, he would find a way to hide it. But the problem was that Emma was also starting to have feelings for Bradley, so she liked it when Bradley noticed her. Emma had always known that she was not very beautiful, so when she saw Bradley, a good-looking young man, paying attention to her, she was proud and flattered. Emma did not dare to take the initiative. She was shy because she had only known her husband before. She had never thought of having an affair. So every time she lay down on the bed, she had to fight her thoughts, trying to get rid of that evil thought from her mind. The thought of having an affair was growing in Emma's mind. She tried to get rid of it. But somehow, since she knew that Bradley liked her, her need had increased more than usual. Every time Bradley peeked at her, she would go back to her room and drag Connor out to do it, but he just kept snoring and refused to get up. One afternoon, he would just casually finish his homework, which made Emma even more upset. Bradley was no pushover either. He knew that Emma liked him too. He knew that she had seen him peeking at her, but she pretended not to know anything. This made Bradley want to do it with her more and more, but he still didn't dare to go further, because even though Connor was asleep, he was still in the house. When he was excited, he thought about it very boldly, but when it came to reality, he was scared, so he still had to masturbate every day. Then, by chance, Bradley got the chance when on Friday night, while having dinner, Connor talked to Emma and said that from next week he would work one night shift and one day shift. As Connor said, because Ezra had returned to Ukraine a lot, the night shift was short of people while the day shift was full. Working the night shift had higher salary and bonus, so Connor signed up to work alternately night and day shifts like that. After dinner on Sunday night, Connor, because tomorrow he would work the night shift, would not have to go to work until 6 p.m, so today he did not go to bed early like usual. The two brothers had already finished the bottle of wine, but he still wanted to stay longer. Connor trudged downstairs to buy cigarettes and beer, while Bradley went out to help Emma clean up and wash the dishes. Standing next to Emma, Bradley felt a desire again. He had been plotting since tomorrow to take decisive action. Thinking about it, the little boy had already saluted. The plan was to carry it out tomorrow when Connor was not home. But when Bradley stood to help her put away the bowl, he accidentally touched her hand, and suddenly, unconsciously, he was reckless. He kept holding her hand and refused to let go. Emma saw Bradley holding her hand. She knew Bradley had an intention, but she felt embarrassed and pulled her hand away, then glared at him lovingly. She said, "Be careful. Drop the bowl now, Uncle." If she waited a little longer, it would definitely fall. Bradley tried to act humorous to push away the action just now. Young children dare to act. Emma also teased him. Young children, but have also experienced several relationships and have had a wife. I'm the best. The two sisters were arguing back and forth when Connor came back. Connor told him to get 2 glasses and then continued to sit down to drink and watch football on the weekend. Connor bought 4 bottles of beer, only finished 1 bottle, but when he saw Emma finished bathing and wearing old shorts and entering the room, he immediately left Bradley drinking alone, saying he was drunk, and went back to his room and closed the door. Bradley sat drinking alone, and he knew what his brother and sister were doing. He went to their room door and put his ear to it, and heard Emma's soft Bradley voice inside. He stood there for a while because he couldn't see anything. So Bradley went to the toilet to jerk off and imagined her bouncing. Thinking about that, he ejaculated all over his hand. The whole second day Bradley went to work. His heart was burning. He just wanted the time to end quickly so he could run home with Emma. The more he waited, the slower it felt like time today was going. He only ate a bowl of lunch and then stood up because his mind was only thinking about how he could do it with Emma tonight, so he didn't care about eating. In the afternoon at 3 o'clock, there were no customers. The men in the kitchen were chatting. He didn't want to listen. He just worked hard like a robot to get to 7 o'clock so he could go home. Bradley looked at his watch and saw it was 5 o'clock. He was very happy because it was only 2 hours until the time was up. The joy didn't last long when Mr. Ezra called him out and told the driver to take Nora, his little boss, to the supermarket to buy some things for the kitchen. Normally, he wouldn't have to go because there was a man in charge of that, but today there were 2 people off at the other shop, so he had to run over to help. Bradley's face fell a little, but he didn't dare to oppose the boss because it was still working hours. Bradley went to the car and muttered, "If you're going, don't go early. Wait until you're about to leave and then send someone." On the bus, he and Nora didn't say anything. They just kept looking at the road. Bradley was annoyed, so he didn't bother to talk. Seeing Nora was silent, he ignored her. Bradley himself hated the type of woman who was rich and looked down on others. No matter how pretty she was, he didn't need her. At the supermarket, he did whatever Nora told him to do, and his job was to push the cart behind his little boss. When he got to the store, it was already 7:30, but Bradley still had to carry the items inside and neatly put them in the warehouse. When he finished, it was almost 8 o'clock, so he ran straight to the bus stop, hoping to catch the nearest bus, because the later it got, the fewer the buses. Bradley looked at the bus timetable and muttered, "Why is my luck so bad today?" Because the bus had only been running for 5 minutes, and he had to wait another 15 minutes for the bus to arrive. While waiting for the bus, Bradley lit a cigarette and thought, today was like this. So when he got home, things might not turn out like Ezra's by the time he got home, which made him a little hesitant. Before he finished his cigarette, a familiar-looking Audi Q7 suddenly stopped at the curb where he was standing. Bradley was a little suspicious, but when the car window rolled down automatically, he realized it was his young mistress. Nora only said one short sentence like an order, "Get in the car." Normally, if he had talked to her like that, she probably wouldn't have bothered to get a ride, but seeing that it was getting late, Bradley threw his cigarette on the ground and opened the door to get in the back seat. Bradley pointed Nora in the direction of her house, and she silently looked across the street as if she was concentrating on something. Nora's words startled her because it was the first time Nora had spoken first. "You're a little late. Why do you look so grim?" "What's with the grimace?" "It's normal." Bradley tried to act like nothing was wrong. "Looking at your face like you lost your rice book and denying it, do you have a date with your lover?" "Yeah." Bradley was a little annoyed by Nora's empty question. Although he was an employee, Bradley was a year or 2 older than Nora. Bradley felt relieved that the car had arrived at his place, so he wouldn't have to talk to his boss. He greeted Nora and thanked her for the sake of it, then opened the car door and went straight into the building without even looking back. When he got home, luckily Emma was waiting for him to come home for dinner, so she was just setting the food on the table. Bradley took a quick shower for a few minutes, then got dressed and came out. He was wearing a pair of pants, but not underwear. His intention was clearly to show Emma his erect little guy. Bradley opened the cupboard to find a bottle of wine to sip on because he had been drinking every day since he was here, so he was used to it. Now, without a little spiciness in his meal, he felt something was missing. Bradley invited Emma to have a drink for fun, but she said she didn't know how to drink. Later, she asked for a beer to cool her down. "It's rare to be free, and when my husband isn't home, I have to do something." During today's meal, the 2 of them suddenly talked less, didn't laugh and talk like every day when Connor was home. Perhaps both of them were thinking about something while eating, but neither dared to say it. After eating, she helped her sister clean up and told stories about the shop, about going to get goods with her boss today, and Emma teased her. She must like the boss, right? Emma smiled slyly and teased her. I like her head, but I never talk to her because she has money and is arrogant and doesn't care about anyone. If I don't like her, then what does she like about me, sister? That girl looks down on people who work if she doesn't like you. And like I said, she looks down on people. She will never stop to give you a ride. It must be unexpected kindness, sister. I don't care, but I like other people. Bradley started to hit the target. Gosh, I've only been here for a little over 2 months, but I already know so many people. But I haven't said anything yet, sister. Why is that? Hit Ezra hard. A cowardly boy is very bad. That's not the problem. The problem is that she has a husband and children. Bradley didn't know if Emma knew what he meant, or if she was pretending not to know. At first, Emma thought Bradley was talking about someone, but after hearing the last sentence, she also suspected who he was referring to. She glared at him and washed the dishes without talking anymore. Bradley had decided to show his cards to Emma. He stood next to her and spoke. At this point, the little boy had come up. He decided to act and didn't hesitate. While Emma was concentrating on washing the dishes, he went behind and suddenly hugged her tightly. Bradley hugged and whispered in her ear and kissed Emma's neck and cheeks. Emma didn't expect Bradley to dare to do that. She felt him hug her stomach tightly and push her forward. Reflexively, Emma leaned over and turned her head to avoid Bradley's greedy kiss. Bradley couldn't kiss her, so he kept rubbing his treasure against her hips, and she could feel that object pressing against her hips. His hand stopped holding her stomach and reached up to pinch both breasts. Seeing that the situation seemed tense, Emma shouted, "Bradley, stop! I don't like that. Are you making noise? Do you hear me?" Bradley seemed to not hear anything. He kept rubbing down and kissed her nape. Emma laughed out loud because his 2-month-old beard tickled her shoulders and nape, making her feel ticklish. Being ticklish, Emma couldn't stand it anymore, pushed him away and turned to run, but he quickly put his 2 hands around her back, pinched her hips and pressed her against the sink. At this moment, the two of them were stuck together. Emma felt his treasure now touching her Venus hill. One hand played with the bottom, the other hand reached up to explore the 2 breasts outside the shirt. Bradley whispered hoarsely, "I can't take it anymore. Look at this," he said, and signalled for her to look down at his bottom, which was now like a tent, because there was no stick to prop up the roof. Emma also looked down, and she couldn't help but laugh when she saw Bradley's shorts, as if there was a stick stuck inside, making it bulge. Bradley took advantage of Emma's smile to kiss her lips. Emma pursed her lips immediately out of reflex to not let him kiss her when he kissed her like he was hungry, but suddenly Emma's buck teeth hit his teeth and lips, causing him to hurt so much that he let go of her lips. Emma was embarrassed and asked him as if she was very concerned, "Does it hurt?" "It's okay." He giggled. Bradley was about to hug Emma to kiss her again when Emma suddenly ran back to her room and closed the door, leaving him standing there like someone who had lost his rice book. Bradley went to her room and saw that she had locked it inside, so he went to his living room to sit. Bradley opened a bottle of beer and sat down to drink. He started to fear that Emma would be angry with him and would not talk to him anymore. Thinking about the last part where Emma also enjoyed kissing back, Bradley still felt high, even though it was only for 30 seconds, but it gave him a strange feeling. Thinking about that, the boy got up as if he had been hungry for a long time. After finishing the bottle of beer, he heard Emma's door open, and he saw her taking her clothes into the bathroom. She closed the door loudly and didn't even say a word to him. Bradley sat there thinking aimlessly. He planned to do it again. He planned to wait for her outside the bathroom. Thinking about the moment Emma kissed him back, he knew she liked it too, so he had to do it again. Bradley stood up and walked back and forth in the room, thinking about what to do. In the end, he gave up on that idea and sat down to finish the bottle of beer. He didn't like being accused of rape, and he didn't like doing it if people didn't like it. He waited for her to finish showering, and then he would apologize for what he had just done. When Emma finished showering, Bradley saw her coming out. He wanted to open his mouth to apologize, but she walked too fast and he couldn't say anything. Bradley sat alone on the sofa. He wasn't sleepy at all. His head was stressed now. He didn't know how to make Emma forgive him. After sitting for a while, Bradley was about to go to sleep when Emma opened the door and walked to where he was sitting, which surprised him a bit. She didn't say anything, but just took a bottle of water, poured it into a glass, and drank it all in one gulp. Bradley sat there watching her actions from beginning to end. When she bent down to pour water, he saw that inside the wide-necked nightgown there was no bra. He clearly saw her 2 breasts. And when she put the cup on the table and was about to go back to her room, Bradley suddenly pulled her hand down and fell into his arms. Emma struggled for the sake of formality. Bradley pushed her down onto the chair and he piled on top of her. His hands roamed all over her body. Now face to face, she was clearly confused, like a young girl about to do it for the first time. Holding her hands tightly, Bradley stood still looking at her face at this moment, suddenly so beautiful, even more attractive to Bradley. She pulled her hands back but couldn't. Her mouth stuttered as if she wanted to say something. Bradley kept looking at her. The more he looked, the redder her face became with shame. He placed a gentle and loving kiss on her forehead. She shook her head slightly and turned away to avoid it. This was the best opportunity. The delicious bait was already in front of her mouth, but he had to be gentle and delicate to bring her into a magical dream. Bradley hugged her close to his chest, feeling the warmth and slight trembling in her body. "Stop!" Bradley did not reply, but held her hand and kissed it, the white hand with long, beautiful fingers. She pulled her hand back and pushed Bradley away. Bradley held her hand tightly around her waist, holding her hand against Bradley's left chest, where she could feel a heart boiling with desire inside. Her eyes stared at it with a bit of curiosity, a bit of desire. Her breathing also became faster, more erratic. Holding her hand, she slid down to her stomach, touching the hair on her stomach, sliding slowly down, down. She felt it. Her hand tensed up to prevent Bradley from controlling her anymore. Her eyes were tightly closed, as if she did not want to see. Bradley was completely empty in front of her, something Bradley could only dream of. While she was struggling with her thoughts, Bradley took the opportunity to kiss her lips. Her body trembled even more because of that kiss. It was like pouring oil on a burning fire, making the fire of desire in her body burn fiercely, burning all her shyness to ashes. The more wonderful it was, the more Bradley accelerated and became more determined. At this moment, he had to win at all costs, and by all means, Bradley's hand took her hand and brought it straight to the right position. The feeling where her hand touched something warm, she understood what it was. Her body trembled even more, even hotter. She wanted to pull her hand back but still couldn't because Bradley's hand was holding it tightly. She reluctantly touched it with difficulty. Controlling her hand up and down there and slowly and gently, little by little her hand touched the hottest part of Bradley's body like it was on fire. Bradley's hand boldly went down to the stream, started to lift the hair and found a way to wander the mountains and rivers. This moment is extremely important. We must act quickly to avoid being helpless. But one thing that surprised Bradley a bit was that Emma's cave had no water yet. So Bradley started to find a way. His middle finger started to act, sliding down the stream and pulling back up to Venus Hill. One finger not enough. 2 fingers slowly, and the potato will be cooked. At this time, She started to relax and gradually accept more. She wrapped her arms around Bradley's neck and pulled him closer to kiss back. Sometimes it seemed like she was suffocating. She pushed Bradley away. Bradley's hand worked while looking at her lovingly. She glanced at Bradley, then turned her head away. Bradley raised his hand to straighten her face, kissed her once, and then looked again. They both looked at each other without saying anything, just warming each other up and looking at each other in silence. Her face turned red and looked even more attractive. She was helpless before her body's instincts, helpless before her strong body. She had to let herself follow her own emotions. After a passionate foreplay, Bradley was about to continue when she stopped him and continued to stammer. "Don't, we should stop." "I know you like it too, but do you still want to stop me?" "Sister, I'm scared." "Don't worry, I won't say anything. If you don't say anything, who will know?" She remained silent and didn't answer, her face full of pain. She looked at Bradley, then looked down at Bradley's chest, avoiding Bradley's longing gaze. Then her right hand reached down to grab his little guy and nodded gently, and just like that, Bradley gradually convinced her. Then what had to happen, happened. Bradley and she rushed into each other passionately. No reason could stop them anymore. The two of them became one, giving each other the sweetest and most sublime emotions of paradise. 2 hours was the time they lived their lives to the fullest for the joy that would open new pages for both of their lives. After finishing, Bradley and she hugged each other for a while. Then she said, "When you're done, get up so I can go wash up." Her voice was soft, seemingly not blaming him. Bradley sat up, looked at her, giggled. Then he used his shorts to clean all his achievements. And ladies and gentlemen, part 1 of the story ends here. Please stay tuned for the next parts in the following videos. If you find this video interesting, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, I would like to say goodbye and see you again in the next videos.